Hey everyone, it is April 17th and I was just given a little update to let you know how I'm doing. It's officially been 2 treatments now in the second round. So I am 2 chemos in the second round, 2 from the first, so I'm 4 chemos in, and with missing the first, I only have 8 total, so I am halfway through all of my chemo treatments, which is kind of exciting. As far as where my brain goes, right? So I'm still aiming for that 3-month goal. So I'm hoping to be done chemo end of May, so I have June off. That's my goal. And then maybe I'll be shopping around for a surgeon. We'll do a PET scan and just see where the metastasis is in the liver and if it's subsided or if it's still there or not, and decide whether or not it's a wise move to go forward with surgery. So lots more to come, but I was just going to say that I've been feeling pretty good. I'm getting more tired. I'm noting that. I fell asleep pretty much after treatment yesterday, so I had a great time. My good friend I had a good friend drive me down to Mistletoe on Monday, and so we had a blast, and wasn't too sore. Had some soreness. He went in from the sternal side, which was a little touchy, but it subsided fairly quickly. So we were able to go to the market and hit the road, and we got back fairly quick, 6-ish, I think. So it wasn't too late of a day. And then yesterday was my conventional therapy for Herceptin and Taxotere, and I had another friend bring me, and that was wonderful. And I thought I was forgetting something, and I did. I forgot my hand cart, but my friend was strong enough to carry all my stuff, all my equipment in. But when we got in there, then I realized I had forgotten the hosing. I had hung it to kind of dry, and I forgot it on the disc golf basket in the basement. But never fear, she enjoys driving stick shift, so they both got to drive my car the last 2 days because they know how to drive stick. So that was super fun. So she was able to race back and grab the tubing and come back. She had plenty of time. Taxotere's at the end. So I don't need to be suited up in the cold gear until the last hour. I try to put it on usually, 10 minutes before, so maybe 20 if I'm feeling really into the cold. But this time we turned it on earlier to get it to recirculate, because I have found it's not really cold up front, and by the end of the hour it starts to get cold. So I put the water bottles in the cooler right when I got up, so it was not right when I got up, so I got up at 6 something. So probably got it in there around 7, and it had some time. My appointment really didn't start until 11 that day, 10:30 labs. So labs looked good. My immune system's still holding up. The numbers did take a dip last week, but this week they went up just a little bit, and if they went down, they went down very, very tiny bits. So that's good, so I'm maintaining. It's not a bad sign, so they seem impressed with my immune system thus far, so hopefully that's the mistletoe and all the supplements and supports I'm doing on my body. But yeah, I was able to work a little bit today. I almost called it after the first patient. I was feeling really lightheaded and uncomfortable, but I sat down, pulled out the laser, did some gentler techniques that I know, and was able to get my bearings, so that's great. So I was able to finish. I saw 3 people, 2 were 90 minutes, so 4 hours of treatments today. Pretty good day for me, so hopefully I can pull it off the next 2 days. So wish me luck. And I was thinking of a topic to maybe discuss a little bit today, and I don't know how many of you know, but 420 is around the corner, so April 20th, which is the sort of, I would say it's fairly well known these days, but it's not a federally recognized holiday, but in celebration for cannabis. It is still federally illegal in North Carolina, where I reside, but Cherokee Nations has legalized it, and they will be opening their first dispensary this Saturday on the 20th, so how perfect. I will avoid that place at all costs right now, because I would imagine it's going to be a nightmare, but I am working to receive my medical certification or medical card. So I do believe, whether or not I utilize Cherokee, I just feel like it's a good thing to support, especially being that I do involve cannabis in my life. It has been extremely effective for nausea. I'd never really used it for nausea before. I'm aware of the benefits, but man, it really works for nausea, especially because I cannot take the nausea medication they gave me. It gives me wicked headaches and stomach pains. And one of them plays around with your dopamine, so you really shouldn't take it more than once a week. So I'm not going to take that stuff. So I'm pretty grateful for cannabis. I have some really close friends that are helping me to get butters and some internal sources so that I'm not having to combust. But I will say combustion forms can be the quickest acting, especially if I have a vaporizer type system that makes it much more pure. But not all is perfect in that world, so the butter is really nice. I kind of work on getting a decent amount in before traditional therapies, and I can pretty much sail through that day. I mean, I get a little nauseated. I've noticed I'm nauseous in the morning first thing, sometimes just lying in bed. And I think it's going to be bad, and then I stand up and move around, and it's not so bad. Sometimes it hits me in the middle of the day. So today it hit me kind of middle afternoon, but I did eat lunch, so sometimes it's just the drop of blood sugar, you know. I am taking berberine, which also, you know, kind of modulates or regulates your blood sugar and keeps it on the lower end, because I want to keep kind of starving the cancer and keeping the chemo being drawn there. So, you know, trying to play with that. So I'm sure that's having an effect on my blood sugar, but I just wanted to, you know, kind of put a shout out there for cannabis. I really think it's a wonderful thing. It's too bad it's not legalized in more states, but it's getting there. I mean, the research is out. A lot of things, unfortunately, in that department and the schools, you know, kind of got buried through the years. So that money didn't really go that far because they couldn't synthesize a pharmaceutical grade product that they could make a bunch of money off of. So it's the unfortunate truth about herbal remedies. Some are really effective. Some are not that effective. Some really need to be you know, reduced down into a singular molecular form to make it more active. And others need synergistic qualities and other molecules that help it synergize and make it useful, you know. A lot of people think it's all about, you know, the CBD, because CBD is legal in North Carolina and they're deriving it from hemp. Like they found a secret loophole. I'm not saying that's bad. That's great. But, you know, sometimes when you start looking at some of these isolated forms, they're using solvents to break down bonds that are fairly strong. And you're playing with chemicals and you're changing molecular structures to pass a, you know, guideline that, I don't know, I think we're kind of playing God a little bit. So I'm not sure how I feel about the hemp-derived products. I try to go with the real thing when I'm able. But for me, for cancer, it's really important that you do have products that contain THC, because it's the THC that actually binds specifically for the HER2 receptor. So, you know, the HER2 breast cancer that I have is very aggressive. There are different human epidermal growth factor receptors, like HER1, HER2, HER3, HER4. But HER2 is really aggressive. It's the one that they pay attention to because it spreads so fast, and it's, you know, just such a fun, happily growing, malignant cancer. So anyway, there can be over 2 million receptors on one HER2 cell, which is just absurd. So the products that I'm taking, like the trastuzumab, which is the Herceptin products, and the perjeta, which is the perjeta, those guys, you know, bind very strongly to HER2 receptors. And they have such an affinity for HER2 receptors that they can blow out other HER2 receptors in the body. And there's a bunch. So they can bind onto ones in the GI tract or the pancreas or the lungs or the heart. And there is well-known documentation of cardiotoxicity. Though they do tend to note that this takes some time and some of it can be reversible, which is what I'm aiming for. But there are cases that it's not reversible. So I'm trying to sort of dig through the research and figure out when is it important to involve supplements to help offset, you know, that toxicity, and what is the toxicity coming from. I dove on, I kind of stumbled upon an article last night talking about the reactive oxygen species and then the reactive nitrogen species in the body, which I hadn't read much about. RNS, so reactive nitrogen species. I didn't know much about those. So anyway, in perfect balance, these things are fine. But with too much in either direction, of course, we have an imbalance, and it can cause damage. And most of us are more comfortable understanding the reactive oxygen species because it's oxidation. And oxidation on any surfaces could be like rust or things, like essentially it's corrosive. So oxidation in the cells is damaging, and it can damage the DNA. Looking at ways that kind of draw back and help to control that RSO product, I guess I would say, since that is linked with what's causing the cardiotoxicity, they're saying, oh, it's a problem with the oxidative stress. Okay, no big deal. We have to use oxidative stress to kill cells and to damage DNA, which we're trying to do when we're doing cancer treatment. It's unfortunate for the side effects for the other cells, but what can we do? Well, the research still isn't out if it's appropriate to use antioxidants. So what my little takeaway so far, what I've gathered, is that it seems okay to be doing them in the diet, getting it from natural sources as much as you can, which we all know those sources aren't perfect. The soil's not perfect. Nothing's really great anymore. Everything has chemicals, and but you do the best you can. So you're trying to get all these nutrients from the foods, and you can go wild on the foods. I mean, nobody's asking me about my green drink in the morning or my spirulina chlorella pills that I'm taking on top of that green drink, which already has that in there, trying to get a lot of chlorophyll in, because chlorophyll molecularly looks super similar to hemoglobin, and my hemoglobin has struggled a little bit through some of these lab tests. So of course I can go from the iron side of things, but when you get into cancer, there's some people have too much iron. Cancer patients can have too much iron, and that can be a problem. But again, have you looked at where it's stored? Is it freely floating, or is it bound? So my hemoglobin is still on the low side. I've always struggled with iron. Because I'm an omnivore, I do try to get organ proteins. So I'll probably up more liver sources, some liver pate I really like. And now I'm doing rice cakes a little bit. Not much, because I feel like I'll get addicted to those things. They're super easy for me to just inhale. Anyway, and they're a ton of carbs. So I'm trying to keep the carbs still low, but I've let myself go a little bit on the carbs, and I've definitely added some weight on my body, which I haven't decided if that's good or bad. But I'm going to start reeling back the carbs a little bit. Anyway, so I'll probably also add a supplement for organ complex back into my diet. I've been doing the Vitality, which is like ancestral, and it has like blood ingredients. So I'm trying to get some of that in, but I've added the living bone and the bone and marrow, and I'm going to look for the spleen, something to help address some of the spleen and adrenals if I can. But it's a ton of pills, so I'm sick of taking pills. But my acupuncturist is really smart, and she said, well, you could just toss them in a smoothie. So I think I'm going to start opening them up and just dumping them into some of my smoothies, which I'm trying to do broth and smoothie kind of stuff, soups around the days of chemo, and cooled kind of things, because I don't want to tax my GI tract too much. I ate late last night. Sarah brought home a delicious meal. It was so good, but it was pretty late eating, and I felt terrible. So I can't push that anymore. I need to eat early and just, do what I do, because that absolutely helps your sleep. And if there's any way to get through anything, it's with good sleep. So I hope some of that's really helpful for you to understand, to circle back full circle, I suppose. If there's 2 million receptors on some of these HER2 receptors, and the THC can bind to the HER2, it's not as strong of a binder as Herceptin, but this is one of the reasons why it doesn't cause any of the damage that these things cause. So it's not going to bind and damage your heart, But it's one of those things that people are pushing, me to take, like RSO, which I'm taking, but I haven't gotten up to the dose that I should be taking, because it's insane. It's a lot. And RSO is Rick Simpson oil. It's very highly concentrated cannabis oil. You're supposed to take like a grain size of rice at a time, but I took a very large dose my first time because I wasn't really paying attention, and I thought, no big deal. And that is a whole other story someday, maybe for a book, because it's a funny one. But it was wild. I'm alive. I'm fine. But I've taken, this rice size several times throughout the day, and I've increased it to 2 or 3 rice sizes. It depends on the time of the day. But I'm personally one of those people who don't like to be overly affected by stuff. I do like to be in control of my body and my mind. So it's a fine line of when to do these therapies, you know, when to tackle the nausea with something that could make me feel a little loopy, you know, but building the tolerance is a really big key too. So I do have probably the strongest tolerance I've ever had in my life. I've never done so many of these kind of products coming in. So, you know, that's a good thing, because the more I have that molecule, the more it can bind to the HER2 and have these anti-cancer effects, which is pretty miraculous. It's just a pretty cool thing. So there's a lot more research out there about those type of things, but luckily it can be really helpful for breast cancer. So we'll throw everything at it. That's all you can do. And I think that's plenty for today. I hope you guys have a great weekend, a wonderful April weekend, and enjoy the flowers. And take care. Bye-bye.